Welcome everybody to another episode of the Bald Avenger Show. And this week is very special to me because I have some good friends, and the idea of this show is to give everybody an idea of who I've chosen to surround myself with, and I don't know if that's going to diminish my marketplace value or raise it. Doesn't really matter to me, but these are the boys that I hang out with, and that I trust to have my back. Traveled the world with these guys for several years now. How far do we go back, Shawn and Eric? How far do we go back?
2005 years.
Yeah, about 15 years now. And 2005.
Yep.
That's crazy. And Joe is more recent, but 6 years ish.
Something like that. Cool. And I do business with these guys. Again, we've traveled the world and had some fun adventures. And the idea here is just to talk a little bit about that and to give you guys an idea of our circle. What we'll try not to do is what we do on our private text to each other. Which if you guys saw those, you'd lose all respect for every single one of us.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't either. So let's jump right into it. And Eric, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
All right, my name is Chaz Michael Michaels. If you're not first, you're last. My name is Eric Michael Collins. Been friends with all these guys for a long time, had lots of fun experiences, and good times, bad times, some in between. And I love business. I love strategy and systems, and going in and helping and supporting as best I can to help other entrepreneurs, specifically reduce their stress, overwhelm, their mental emotional state, rather than just trying to scale something that's already driving them crazy. And that's about it.
Excellent. Shawn.
What up, y'all? Shawn Hunt. I don't have three names to give like Eric Michael Collins because
well, most murderers have three names.
I just go up with two. I'm not going to blow up any buildings or any weird shit like that. I'm not shooting any fucking presidents today. So you get two names.
Shawn Hunt again.
Yeah. Whatever. We'll put that on the beginning warning. We are not talking about shooting any presidents on this particular episode.
You don't have to worry. I don't have three names. It's all good.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Like making money, having fun. Business is amazing. Business with friends is fun. So happy to be here. Happy to help. So
awesome.
Fun little adventure here.
Fun little adventure.
And I get to wear a cape. What up?
I brought my cape.
Fucking
I brought it. Yeah, I brought it. I'm going to show that shit.
Matter of fact, I got to see Jason.
Best present I've gotten in years.
I got to see Jason in that cape in a way I'm never going to forget.
That's true. Not too long ago, actually.
Couple few days ago.
Yep. It was an interesting thing. I'm going to actually post that on Instagram for those of you that are interested.
Yep. And,
suffice it to say, it was basically cape and nothing else. So
cape and Baccac.
You were good with banters.
Yeah.
Make sure you check out Instagram.
Yep. So Joe, those of you guys that are hanging out with me know Joe and I work together day to day, and in a company called Anton J Global. He runs it, and I'll just let you introduce yourself to the people that don't know you.
Sure. Joe Calo. Business strategy is really appealing to me. It's works with my head and the way my head works. Love it. It's been a hell of a ride. Looking forward to it. These fellows are fantastic people. You are who you surround yourself with. Been all over the world with them. From the Everglades with Shawn to God knows, all over the place. And of course, Eric Michael Collins has never killed a president, which is really good news. Or anyone else that I know of.
Yeah, everybody can reference back to this episode when and if that something like that happens.
And Eric magically goes on vacation for 3 weeks.
Yeah. It's like, guys, I need some help. I need a legal fund. That's never happened with us before.
Anybody got a boat? Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
That's it. And, yeah, as you know, I work with Jay day to day. It's been a hell of a lot of fun. It's been a lot of years now. And we're really taking off in 19. So busy as hell. We just got back from a 3-city tour. So pretty cool stuff.
Pretty cool stuff. Great start to the year and kicking ass and taking names. So one of my sort of favorite memories of all of us, I think it was Costa Rica. And Eric, tell them a little bit about your neck injury, and then I'll tell the rest of the story. Not
Where
the one
Joe
that
almost killed me.
Yeah, no, not the one. I want to tell that story. Just tell us a little bit about. I think the first time you broke your neck, you were with Shawn, right?
No, I wasn't. No, you want the broken neck story?
Let's hear it.
Okay. So in my younger years, I made terrible life decisions.
Those are over.
And, we don't have enough hours in the day to go through all of them, so we'll just hit some of the worst ones.
Points.
I was craving significance and had a big pit in my soul, and I figured out some strategies, booze and drugs and women, to just shove as much in that hole as I could. And it really didn't work too well for me because, as many people know, there's no bottom of it. So I just kept doing more and more and more. And then invariably I was out on a yacht in South Florida with a bunch of buddies. And I was already half a bottle of vodka, half bottle of whiskey in. I think it was probably like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Been doing some Coke and smoking some weed, taking some pills. And, when you do that much, you get like this Zen-like clarity and all your decisions just become perfect. And, or at least you think. And diving off a yacht in shallow Florida head first seemed like a good one. And as soon as I did, I hit the bottom and I felt it pop. And that hurt a lot. I've been in a lot of fights. I've had a lot of injuries, and that was just absolutely miserable. And so pulled myself up out, and rather than going to the hospital, went and had some recreational activities with some ladies, and then went to a bar, and then went home and licked my wounds for 4 days, to where my mom finally said, "You fucking idiot." She's like, "Will you go to the hospital?" She said, and I said, "Okay, fine." She said, "Okay, I got an appointment with a chiropractor. Go ahead and go." I'm like, "Okay." So I go to the chiropractor, and this colossal fuckhead put a 5-pound plate on my head before he got the x-ray results back. And said, "Okay, well, let's see your range of motion." And so he's asking me to move my neck side to side, up and down, jerking around, and took the plate off. I'm like, "That really hurts a lot, dude." And he comes back in, and he was literally green. I've never seen a green human being in my life. Dude looked like he saw a ghost. And he's like, "I called a medevac. It's on the way right now. Do not move an inch." And so went into the hospital, took the ambulance. I actually did a conference call in the ambulance with a World Financial Group at the time. And they're like, "What's that ambulance?" They're like, "Can you close the window wherever you're at?" And I'm like, "No, I'm in the ambulance. Just wanted to do this call. It was important to me." They're like, "What the fuck?" They're like, "Get better. Call us later." So go to the hospital. Doctors gave me a 50-50 chance of survival if they went in and did a fusion, and or a better chance if they screwed, the halo to my head. And flipped a coin, and it ended out pretty good. And then had some physical therapy, some healing to do. And then immediately after my wedding, 11 years later, which is a part of why I'm so passionate about what I do now, thought my life was going great. And then I found out that the screws had failed. I had big holes in my spine, and I could die at any minute again. So I had to get another fusion. And that really cemented to me the importance of having a business that does not revolve solely around the owner as the biggest bottleneck, and having a business that can survive without you, not indefinitely, not automated, not 4-hour work week, but certainly to where people can do their job. And so that was a really good pivotal moment.
So you had just had surgery. And then it was 2 years later that we ended up in Costa Rica after your second surgery?
Where Joe attacked me? Yes. I didn't know it was prison rules. Nobody said prison rules. I was like, dude, give me a warning.
So we got to set the stage a little bit. Again, we do these we do these boys trips all around the world, and we just happened to be in Costa Rica, and we'd gotten this house that had a chef and all this stuff. It was a beautiful house and a great pool. And actually, this happened because we moved from the house and then we rented out a hotel. And so we went to the hotel and it had a nice pool. And this pool happened to have a basketball court in it and a basketball hoop. And so we all decided, after a few liquid imbibements, so to speak.
By a few, he means 70s.
That it would be a good idea to play some basketball.
Brilliant.
So we just started, and as it happens with all, with a group of alpha males, nobody wanted to lose. I don't understand that. and Joe, that big fucking the monkey in the fucking pool, just starts throwing elbows. He's like, "Fuck you guys! I don't. This is my version, Joe. You can tell your version later. Okay?
And it's your lie. You tell it any way you want, Eric."
So no, in all seriousness, what happened was we were all having fun, trying to win, and I accidentally caught an elbow to the face, and I heard something pop, and I thought I broke my fucking neck again. So I quivered like a little bitch on the because I was like, I'm gonna die in this fucking country.
That's the first time I've ever held a grown man like a little baby in my arms. You're not gonna die, but like, you are. You die looking in my eyes, brother. I love you.
I was like, koala me, man, koala me. I'm like.
I had no idea, too. We're playing prison rules in this pool. I'm getting killed between Kenneth and all the other monkeys. And by the way, you monkeys count. Eric was behind me, climbing up my backside to drown my ass. And I spun like a basketball player, like I'm boxing out. And Eric's face happened to be where the backside of this elbow was.
Yeah, just happened to be there.
That's not true. That's actually not what happened. I whispered in his ear, I'm like, "You're sexy." And then he snapped, and he's like, "What the fuck, dude? Get off my shoulder."
He's like, "I like brunettes."
It's the face hair thing, dude. It would have freaked me out.
Yeah, exactly. So that was fun. And the good thing, the other great thing.
Well, Eric didn't die. That's the good thing.
Eric didn't die, and the other great thing that we have with Joe is that wherever we go, we have a qualified ER. You have all the medical training, and you're a fireman, and
a lot of practice now. But Shawn put all that shit to the testing.
Yeah, Shawn. So the good thing is we take Joe along as our backstop. So was it the same trip, or we were in DR for the next one, right?
I think we're in DR.
Yeah. So we're in DR, and anybody that knows Shawn, he has 3 drunk positions, right? He has 3 drunk positions. One is straight up. The other one is slightly bent backwards, and then I can't even get it. Like this one, like when he's bent over and basically dragging his knuckles behind him. That's when you got the best Shawn Hunt version you're gonna have, and who knows what the fuck is gonna happen, right? So we go to DR and we decide that we're gonna do a ropes course. And in DR, anybody that has ever seen and this was it after we played paintball or during? I think it was, but yeah, it was before. So anyway, so Shawn is in, and it was kind of early in the morning. I think we just kept going the night before.
He woke up drunk.
Yeah. So Shawn was in prime form and bent all the way backwards, jumping on a fucking trampoline before we even got started. And then we decided to get on a ropes course. And those of you that are thinking that this is a ropes course like the rest of the world, like that has safety rules and shit, this stuff was duct taped together. It was raining. It was like you could not, and it was like teetering, and there's all of us that are on it, and it's just like
there was lightning.
Yeah, and lightning. Yeah, I forgot the lightning.
Jumping up and down, jumping, bouncing, shock loading the thing.
Yeah.
The sticks are swaying back and forth. No country other than Dominican Republic, the other side of Haiti.
Yes.
No country in the world would have let a drunk on that high line rope course. Nevertheless, in a harness.
That's a little aggressive.
His shoulders. He's upside down on the zip line, upside down, ready to slide out of the harness. And I'm behind him. I'm like, these idiots gave me this guy. What the fuck am I gonna do if he falls? I'm just watching.
Yeah, like literally, like just again between the stops, because it was a long ropes course, and part of it had a wobbly. One of the things you had to walk across was this wobbly thing. It had a rope on each side, and then like one thin little. It wasn't even one plank. Remember, it was like end-to-end planks, and they're going like this, and then you're hanging on the little ropes, and he's just like bouncing up and down on it. And Joe was right behind him for his emergency services in case they would have been needed.
Yeah, he went down right there.
My favorite part about that whole day was the guy that you brought along that was scared of heights who wouldn't climb up that fucking pole.
We were so gentle with him.
Oh, you were so
nice to him.
So again, to set the table for everybody, this guy that goes on the trip with us had a traumatic experience with at a high rise. Like he climbed high poles, and one of his experiences was he climbed at the pole, literally freaked out, and they had to bring the fire department and everybody to pull him off of him. And he's like, when we got there, he's like, yeah, fuck you guys. I'm not going. I'm not, it's not happening. And so we were trying.
We respect your opinion, and that was it. And
yeah, exactly. Well,
a few words of encouragement.
Yeah, exactly. So part of our guys' trips together, like empowerment, and like we're taking our game to the next level, and we're like coaching each other, and we're supporting each other, and Shawn's coaching is very direct. Yeah, he kept telling the guy, stop being a pussy. Like, this was his coaching. Stop being a pussy. I think he said it like 5,000 times, bent backwards with a bottle of beer in his hand. Stop being a pussy. So that was fantastic coaching. But anyways, that's one of many.
There's a link below if you would like to sign up for the Shawn coaching.
Shawn does great life coaching, so you can click below, and also he does a private ropes course. Yep. So anyway, but that'll give you a little bit of a flavor, like of our trips together and all the experiences we have. And so what we try to what we do on the show is we work through 4 subjects: and business, philanthropy, vitality, and politics. And let's start with business, guys. And what is your best advice to people when it comes to business? What do you, just a couple of points, like 1, 2, and 3 points of you've all been successful at different levels. We've all, the other great thing is, well, besides Joe, I don't think you've had a massive fuck up failure in your life, but oh yeah, okay, good. I always think of Joe like he's the safe one, like Joe's the safe one of the group, and that's not very safe.
Until I'm not.
Not saying much, but why don't we start there? Actually, your biggest business fuck up. Go, Eric. Biggest business fuck up. See, this should be an indicator of the file of fuck ups that we all have in our head.
I need to open my file cabinet, and I need to have a little time to research. Probably, which was tied to my, nervous breakdown back in 2004, which defined, the rest of my life. The biggest fuck up, again, was tying back to the same symptoms, was trying to do everything to seek approval and, significance. And so the more you're thinking about yourself, really the less you're paying attention to, what's really important. And I'm not, I'm not a genius by any stroke of the imagination. However, back in 2004, when I was doing real estate investing, I had like 30 employees. We were doing real estate, mortgage, property management in Southwest Florida. And I had crunched the numbers, and it was plain as day that our system, our real estate investment system, was not working anymore. The writing was on the wall. Home values had gone up disproportionately to rental, to income, down payments, the number of phone calls that were coming in from ads. So like the data was there. And I remember specifically sitting there with my team and having the hubris and arrogance to say that, we can just figure it out. We can figure anything out. We can just power through it, and the lies that I told myself to like take that data and push it off to the side, and to think that, nothing ever ends, is probably my biggest mistake. And, it cost me dearly. It cost investors. A lot of investors still made money because, they were able to exit before the real bottom fell out. But unfortunately, it cost me because, I had a full-blown nervous breakdown. And the reasoning I still believe to this day why that happened was, if you think about beliefs in your business, in your life, whatever, kind of the best way I can equate it is like spokes on a wheel. And so if you have all these little spokes on a wheel, you cut one, cut two, it's not the end of the world. The wheel can keep spinning. But all at once, a lot of the lies that I had told myself kind of all got shattered at the same time. And too many of those spokes, those beliefs got broken, and severed. And then the wheel collapsed. And so, we're meaning-making machines, right? We create stories. And most of the time it's for our benefit to make us look better or to hide certain things we don't want to acknowledge. And, that's the consequences of not being truthful with yourself are pretty big in business.
Yep. And it's interesting. I mean, one of the things that people can identify with and is that when you fail in a company, and again, it's just for most people, because they don't pay attention to their numbers, what happens is one day they wake up and all of a sudden there's no more money. They can't live off the goodwill of other people, whether that's investors, bankers, their mom's credit card, whatever, whatever it is. And then they go out of business. And so many people so tightly tie their identity together with their business that it has a giant psychological effect. And that's where, one of the things that if I would have known it earlier in my career, it's a warning. People should understand, know your numbers before the fucking shit blows up in your face, because it's not just shutting doors to a business. It's literally dying. A piece of you is dying. And when you go out of business, because those of you that are business owners that are listening to this, it's a part of your identity. Ties you to the community. It ties you to your romantic relationship. It ties you to your family. It's paying the bills. It's all that kind of shit. And especially for a man, I can't speak from a woman's perspective, but for a man, that's fucked up. And it's not just, okay, we'll close business, I'll go get a job. It's like, I have to really come to grips with the fact that, of who I am as a person, and just to get back on the wheel again. So I highly suggest everybody understanding their numbers. It's a really great lesson that Eric just gave us, that we need to know our numbers, and you got to be honest with yourself and not just pawn it off on the fact that, your financials to a CFO or to a bookkeeper or whatever it is. Know now and also be projected into the future. So that's awesome. How about you, Shawn?
Biggest fuck ups in business? Got a lot of fucking files to go through.
That's why we're all brothers,
Yeah. That was some good insights there. For myself, I'd say the biggest in most recent years would probably be taking on this big Home Depot account that just about put me out of business. pretty much did the way that we were doing it. I was forced to change my business, which was a blessing that I did at the time, you know. But I had a great system going. I was running a sales company, sales organization, a little over 30 guys. We had 37 guys in the field running 4 to 5 appointments a day at our peak here. And we had a great system and it was working. We were closing a bunch of deals for 7 different companies. And then I just hit like the mother load of all leads with Home Depot saying, hey, we're going to hand you we have 6,000 leads a month and we don't know what to do with them. How many can you take? So we were like, hey, we'll blow this thing up. They were doing about $700,000 a month in business. Their goal was to do $1 million a month in business. We did $508,000 for them our first week. We did over $2 million the first month, over $3 million the second month. We like massive success. So what I normally do when things are working is I take all the resources that I have and we go after that one thing that seems to be working and try to crush it, which is exactly what we did. So I pulled all my guys from all 7 companies and said, sorry to all these companies that we're doing great business with for years. And took all those guys to go smash the Home Depot business out of the ballpark, which we did. And I didn't expect them to go take all the money and go BK on everybody. And now there's massive class action lawsuits with that whole deal. But at the end of the day, there's, it's just lose, lose, lose for everyone. And it pretty much put me out of business. So, I mean, we had, 20 girls and guys on the phone in there and about 37 guys in the field closing deals all day long. And we went to getting rid of everybody and going down to maybe 2 or 3 guys and trying to figure out how we salvage it. Got rid of the 6,000 square foot office and went to an 800 square foot office and started over essentially and had to dig our way out. Yeah. So the biggest mistake I'd say out of that whole shitstorm was taking something that's working and screwing it up to go after the big fish, so to speak, instead of just slow growing it and duplicating the model that's already working.
Well, I remember that time and how enthusiastic you were and how great it was going. I mean, I remember that very, very vividly. And one of the things that the cool thing that I like about everybody here is that we learn lessons and we do our best not to make same mistake twice. Right. I mean, that's not, I'm not counting that in our personal relationships, but when it comes to business, we learn from it. And one of the things that I watched you do that impressed me the most was you ask way more questions now, right? You don't just take people's word for it. You make people, you just do your due diligence and you ask questions. And that's something that I really admire about the way that you came back from that and then you end up, because of that, you end up with this business model you have now and you're just fucking crushing it. So, that's a great lesson for everybody is to, when something comes along that seems too good to be true, sometimes it's worth taking a couple of extra minutes to run it through the what don't I see model, right? And seeing where is that hole of my, because that's the thing we all have in common is our enthusiasm. When we see shit, plus we have the history of being able to do really big deals in business and to make big shit happen. And so when something comes along, it's like our identity to say, don't really care what the pitfalls are because whatever it is, I'm going to make that shit work. And, and that's not like we're all shaking our heads now because we've all gone through it. I've certainly done it. And nowadays it's worth stopping and pausing and saying, is this person, is this idea, is this business model, is this thing, and the people associated to it, are they checking out, right? So that I don't put my time, money, and energy. And that's, all of us are getting older. And that's really what we have. That's our currency is time. And so
the biggest lesson that I've learned over the years from not just this experience, but a shitload of them, and it's a bunch of stuff that we've all done together, is the infrastructure really strong enough to support what we can do? Because at the end of the day, all 4 of us on this call tend to have that, Midas touch type deal, where when we implement what we know into somebody's business, it blows up, and more often than not, it implodes because they don't have the structure behind it. So that's why I believe we're all a lot slower at entering into deals now, is we're doing our homework to find out if they can actually handle the success that we can help them with.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, the common phrase that Joe and I use all the time with our clients at over at Anton J is that most, more companies die of indigestion than they do of starvation. And that, and we all have that tendency when we put our finger on something, when we put our name behind something, the money and the sales kind of comes flowing through. So really, really good, lessons there. So thanks for that. How about you, Joe?
Oh, Jesus. So many things. I mean, so many things that I've learned since. But I did the day-to-day wrong. I mean, I watched my dad. My dad was a serial entrepreneur. He owned restaurants, but just when he'd get one clicking, he'd open another one. And just when he'd get that one clicking, he'd open another one. But it wasn't clicking on its own. It was just like, okay, it's open. Let's do something else, and let's do something else. And then when he didn't always manage it. Like sometimes it was a little, what's the right word that I can use in a public forum? We got to cover bills somehow. Let's figure it out, and not always was that the best choice or whatever. So I learned those lessons, but I went into business thinking I could just work my way through it. I just work. Like if I work and work and work, it'll all work out. And that's what I learned from him. Now I tried not to do the shady side, but work and work and work. But I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. So I mixed up activity for productivity, and I'd spend time on things that weren't important, put things out of sequence. I just thought that, if everybody thinks it's as simple as if I sell $10 and it only costs me $5, it's $5. And that's as far as our business knowledge goes so often on the finance side when we start. We just think I'll sell it for a higher price and make, and then get my profit, and that's the end of it.
Yep.
That's not how that shit works. So I didn't understand finance. I didn't understand culture. I didn't understand how to make my business not about me, and not dependent upon me, so that it wasn't duplicatable. So I had a job that I owned, and I worked and I worked and I worked and I worked. And it was always, my head was right here above the water.
Yep.
And it was a pain in the ass, no matter what level. It was always like, damn it, you could pay yourself a nice salary, but it was always, the business was always right there. I mean, those were absolutely my biggest growths.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, I mean, again, you and I do this, we've done this day in, day out for years now with other companies, and the lessons I always tell people, that they hire Anton J because of my failures, not because of my successes. And the lessons that I learned, it's so often that we sit in on some of these meetings. We just came from New York, and we've been to all of these businesses, over hundreds of them now. And one of the things that we talk about most is, this is what I did, which is what you don't want to do. Right. So, and then here's the proper structure afterwards. So, I don't suggest that approach to people. There's a lot of, finding people that have the right input, that have gone through what, in your business, that have gone through hard shit. Those are the people that you want to look up and that you want to learn from, because they've been there. Right. And they can tell you, watch out. Right. It's like a kid playing a video game. They're like, Dad, right around this corner, there's going to be 3 people shooting, and because they fail. Right. And then they come back and they go, and they know that's there now. Now it's that pattern recognition. And you want to find somebody that's got enough pattern recognition that came from experience, and experience usually comes from failure. Right. And so, it's a really, really good lesson. So just really quickly, what's been one of your biggest business successes? And just really quickly, because I want to move on to the next subject, but let's start with you, Eric. What's been one of your biggest business successes?
When I had a construction company, I went to Keith Cunningham, who you recommended, Jason, and I got, after I broke my neck, I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I need to make sure that the lights are going to stay on, with or without me, right? Like, I was literally asking another buddy, I'm like, hey, if I die, could you come in and take over, so my wife would, have income. And so I went and shifted from, if the quadrant, whatever, employee, small business owner, investor.
Mhm.
So I kind of fell in love with the idea of going from small business owner to business owner where it can operate without you. And so rather than learning how to be the best at starting a new company or being the best entrepreneur, I said, I want to be the best business owner. And so along with, Jason's help and, Shawn and a great many other mentors, I sat there and said, okay, what do I need to do to start removing myself? And so it was a little bittersweet, but I remember I started taking off Fridays. So I would go skydiving on Fridays. I'm like, most people don't need me, so I might as well just not show up on Friday. And then I asked myself, I said, okay, and every time someone would come up, I would, build a system, process, automation, or whatever around it. And so then I said, there's no way I could take off Mondays, right? Monday's my craziest day. So I said, okay, no matter what, I'm taking off, Monday morning, at least until, 11 or 12 off. So I would go scuba diving in the morning on Mondays, and I'd come in with a mask imprint, and, people would laugh at me. And so one of the nicest parts was we do a modified like Scrum meeting, stand up. Mm-hmm. So you sit there and you look at the backlog, you look at everything that needs to get built, you compare it to your outcomes, and then you go, okay, what do we want to build? And so I walked in, and the team had already done the meeting. They had already done every step that we normally do. I didn't lead it. They just took over, figured it out. I walked in, I'm like, what do you guys need? And they're like, nothing. They're like, we're good. I'm like, a little bittersweet, little, because I think
it's a fucked up feeling to have a business that doesn't actually need you, right? I mean, and that's the growth, right? That's the minute that somebody becomes a business owner is when they don't need that gratification from, that it need, like, if the company that you're running needs you to be there, then the business owns you. You don't own the business. And that's a psychological battle. It's like, it's a psychological battle that you have to get prepared for, that if you want to build your business to be able to run without you, then it's got to run without you. And when it doesn't need you, that shouldn't impact or affect in any way, shape, or form your ego.
Right? Yeah. And I mean, that's the biggest part is like, one of the things that like kind of combined was something Tony teaches, the 6 human needs, which you share often. And then like it all kind of came together, and I just thought, wait a second, the reason I'm addicted to my business is because I'm looking to get my personal needs fulfilled from the business.
The adrenaline rush. One thing about all of us, we're all adrenaline junkies, right? And when you're running a company, we get that hit. No matter what, we're solving problems, we get that hit.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's, again, it was coming back to significance, right? Or it was coming back to, serotonin or oxytocin or whatever, right? So when it finally worked for me was when I like separated and I did an inventory, and I said, what are all the needs that get fulfilled from the business? And what are those same needs that get fulfilled from my personal life? Mm. And then it like dawned on me, and I went, holy shit, every time I try and like pull away, I'm creating a vacuum. And so, now my personal needs are not being met. Yep. So of course, then it's pulling back into the business. Mm. So then that's when I said, okay, what are all the different ways that I can become happy outside of the business, and have all these needs fulfilled? And I really meditated, did a brain dump, went through, and I started like scheduling it out. And then all of a sudden I was like, holy shit, I would leave for, 6, 7, 8, 9 days, and we'd do $100,000 in business again and again. And so it felt really nice, but then, I'm not going to say the business ran without me, but it sure ran a hell of a lot less. And, I went from running leads 7 days a week, to maybe working 15 hours, 20 hours a week.
Awesome. So your biggest success was when you figured out how to get separated from your business.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. Shawn?
Biggest success over the years, probably one of the best things that's happened in my current business that I'm in. One of the biggest successes that I've had with that is being able to look at things quite a bit differently, in a different way than I think probably everybody else in my industry looks at things at this point. when we started this 7 years ago, our average sale was about $9,800. 9 years ago now. We started this 9 years ago, I guess. Our average deal was about $9,800. About 6 years ago, our average deal got up to be about $12,000. I remember when we were going to some Tony Robbins business mastery stuff. One of the things Keith Cunningham mentioned was our first goal was going to be to get my business to add 10% to the bottom line. Our average deal at the time was about $15,000. He said, "How do we get it to 16.5?" Mm-hmm. My first thought was impossible. That's impossible. The reason why is all my competitors' average sale was at 10 grand. We were at 15,000, and everybody in the business was accusing us of price gouging. And
I remember this conversation. It was me and you and Keith were in the same room.
Yeah.
And you're like, nobody can take that up. Like, we're already fucking crushing everybody else is like selling pennies on the dollar. You're like, how the fuck am I supposed to sell for more?
Yeah. And so what I did to find out where that price was is I took where everybody in the industry thought things should be priced and where everybody was pricing their stuff competitively to each other. Mm-hmm. And I looked at how do we approach it a different way? How do we add more value? How do we get it to be more affordable on a monthly basis, even though that the package might be a bigger package? And so we were selling things at 15,000, and all of the banks that we use for funding were kind of giving me a hard time about price gouging and saying, if you keep this up, we're going to have to either remove you out of our program or put limitations because you guys are charging too much and blah, blah, blah. And I remember getting into all these arguments with the finance companies we were using at the time, saying, you're nothing but the finance company. You're like Visa. And at the end of the day, who are you to dictate to me what I can charge for a steak? When you go to Ruth Chris, I buy steaks. When we go to freaking dinner, I don't go to Sizzler. I'm not buying a $4.99 steak.
Right.
So at the end of the day, if I'm going to go to Ruth Chris, it's up to me to decide if I'm going to spend $65 for a steak or not. You're the freaking Visa company. Stop trying to tell me how to do my business. Ooh. So I'm having major battles with them. And at the same time, Keith Cunningham's going, yeah, but we're going to increase it by 10%. Right. So I remember having like a 3-day board meeting with Keith. You were there, Jason. Mm-hmm. We were all in Texas going through the numbers, and I was trying to justify we're doing 30 deals a month, $15,000 on average per deal. He said, great, we're only going to go to 33. That's not even an extra one deal a week. Can we get to 33 a month, and can we go from 15 grand to 16.5? Right. We did that. We shot to 18,996. And then again, I got all this blowback from the banks that we were using at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I'd say my biggest success was one of the things I got from that Keith Cunningham weekend there was how to look at our business differently than everybody else in our business is looking at it. How do I take insights from a guy like him who's a seasoned vet at all kinds of different businesses, along with everybody else in our board, and figure out how do we take what everybody else knows from their industry and implement it into my business. Right now, our average deal is a little over 100 grand, and all my competitors right now are throwing hissy fits, and I'm having the same problems with the banks trying to threaten to kick us out because they don't understand what we're doing, and I'm giving them zero information, and they can all suck a bag of, whatever you're allowed to say on this freaking radio.
There's zero filters, by the way. So
zero fucks given. Yeah. So all my, so-called competitors are still trying to figure out what we're doing differently. Now their average sales gone up to about 18 grand and we're at over 100. And the same story. They're just, trailing behind by 6 years,
Well, there's a couple of really great lessons buried in there. Number one is to continually ask the right questions, right? The quality of our lives are in direct proportion to the quality of the questions we allow ourselves to ask ourselves. and had you capped yourself out. And I think that's what's happening in a lot of businesses, right? Is they're like, oh, everybody else is we're comparing ourselves to everybody else who's doing shitty work and not great at customer service. And they're not thinking through their finances problems, and they're not figuring out how they can fall in love with the outcome of their client, and, so on and so forth. They're just sitting there going, well, I'm doing okay comparatively to the people that are in my industry. That's one really great lesson. And then the other great lesson is that you weren't a numbers guy and you became a numbers guy. And you've always been good at numbers from running your deals and all that kind of stuff, but running your company by the numbers has been a totally different evolution for you. And that led to that awareness and that ability for you to be able to bump that up. If everybody didn't hear what he said, he started at 9,800 per deal, and now he's over 100,000 per deal. And his competitors in his industry are around 18.9, which, a couple years ago, I saw Shawn. I saw I saw him arguing with Keith about this subject, and not, about being able to raise the price 10%. So there's a great lesson in there, is that if you run the race against yourself, and you ask yourself the right questions, then you're gonna have a higher level or opportunity to be successful, and that's exactly what you've done. And when you're running a race against other poorly run companies, then you're going to remain in their company, right? You're going to remain in their company. So thanks for that, Shawn. That was very valuable. How about you, Joe? Biggest business success?
Biggest. So, definitely getting from you the falling in love with their clients' outcomes. I've had some incredible interactions, I guess, post doing that. You can really make a difference in someone's life.
Big time.
It's been kind of emotional, as corny as that sounds, but it's like, damn, it can really have an impact in people's lives, especially in our case where we're dealing with business, which to a lot of people is like their identity and their baby. So they really care a lot. And falling in love with their outcomes and then delivering on those outcomes has been an incredible emotional success as it relates to business.
Well, it's interesting. You and I just had an experience, right? And one of the companies, it's not that I believe, we saved that company.
100%.
And the emotion and the tears and the stuff that was flowing in that when we went in and did that rescue, it was beautiful, man. I'm with you. It does sound corny, but people's identities, it's how they pay their bills. They're scared to death when it's not working right. They're afraid of what's going on in the environment. And when you can come in, build a system and solidify and show them a future, man, it is emotional. You're absolutely right.
It really is. And then, certain times, depending on the business you have, even, Eric, in your business, anybody's business, sometimes you're delivering something somebody really needs.
Yes.
And it's pretty impactful. So that's on the emotional side. On the financial side, we helped a client in a matter of a few months put an extra $600K in cash in their pocket.
Yep, we did.
$600,000 in cash, not profit.
Mm-hmm.
And in what, 5 months?
Yep.
And we hadn't even figured out December by the time we did that math.
Yep.
So when it comes down to that, that's just hard numbers.
Yeah.
And that was fairly incredible. And then, on the giving back side, we've been able to, because, we still set up charities like businesses, and I think you did the math. So last year, I think you said our team had done over $3 million in helping at some form or fashion.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you got to your numbers or your totals or all that, but that was when I read that, because you had posted it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Years ago, I raised, $50,000 for a small breast charity, group, and those kind of charity pieces. When it's a small group and you make a big impact, when you have more to give, you make a bigger impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those probably in those areas, those have been the biggest ones for me.
Yeah, we get to see a lot of that. We're asking that question of, what's your biggest business success? It's the next person that hires Anton J. Global.
Amen.
That's what it looks like. And we do live a blessed life to be able to help those save jobs and save, savings, life savings and homes and, all that kind of shit. We do live a blessed life.
And change cultures.
change cultures.
Literally people laughing in the office instead of crying on their way to work.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. So, excellent. Well, let's move on and move through a couple of other subjects. And here's, when we talk about this next subject, I don't want, what I don't want is for us to fluff it up. Cause I know we all four of us have different, feelings and opinions about philosophy or about philanthropy and charity. And I just would kind of like to know, because I think that there's different attitudes, and I'll kind of summarize what I found being in the philanthropic world when we're done. But just a quick take on charity and philanthropy and kind of how you view it. How about you, Eric?
So I'm a little jaded, I guess.
I see the look on Shawn's face, so I'm.
I'm a little
I
jaded.
can't wait for that. I can't wait.
When I was young, I'd be running around as a kid and, whatever. And a big thing I used to like to do is take meals to the homeless. So I'd see them on the side of the road, the sign or whatever. I'd go to McDonald's, go to whatever. And then, I'd just sit there and eat with them. And, friends, people, whatever, my mom, they'd notice me. And I got to the point where I was making, decent money when I was 16. And I'd be like, hey, there's a haircut place right down the street. I'm sure we could get you some clothes, blah, blah, blah. And I would try and help them get back on their feet. And so I did that year after year after year after year, I think for, I don't know, 15 years at least. And not one person, I'd hand out like business card, like, hey, I'll help you out, whatever. And so not one person ever took me up on it. And then I got to a point where I'm like somewhere in the overlap. And I said, you know what? I don't want to help any charities where the people basically made a conscious decision to put themselves in this circumstance. And as rough as that may sound, I'm sure, American Cancer Society does good work.
You don't have to sugarcoat it. There's a lot of people.
People make poor life decisions,
right?
And more often than not, they need to own it. I've owned mine, and where I like my focus and attention to be is with kids.
Yeah,
and it's like they did not make a fucking decision, to get diabetes or cancer, or like I make donations regularly to Smile Train. Where and I also look at it as ROI, right? And Jason, we've sat with different charities and, I've kind of torn it apart. And my thing is like, what's the ROI behind this? And so if somebody gets a cleft palate, fixed, the surgery costs, I think, I don't even know what it costs, $100, something like that. They have doctors that volunteer. And then now in like developing nations, those children are considered as cursed, that they were born under a bad moon. There's all these different things. And then they cannot go to school. They cannot, usually find a spouse. Generally, they rely on, other people, and they're not productive members of society. And so that really I like. I love, also Make-A-Wish. And then recently I started getting involved with just because of the huge difference that it makes is Himalayan cataract, where for $25, a surgical procedure can be done to remove the cataract and give somebody their vision. And I think they're healed in like a day. And so you're taking somebody that, and I don't think anybody made decisions. It's a thing that happens with age. So nobody made a decision, I don't believe, to get cataracts. And so it takes people when they're a little bit older, right? The other end of the spectrum, I guess. And, you hear these videos of people just being able to go, and they would literally just stay inside of their small room and not leave. And they, think about that. If you're in a third world country, what are you going to do? You can't work, you can't help, bring water from the stream or whatever. So when they're doing these, for $25, you're literally giving somebody their vision to be able to see loved ones, family members, to be a productive member of society. And the ROI on that is insane. So those are the kind of things that, I'm passionate about.
That's a good lesson to everybody out there listening that has a charity, you're donating to a charity, you're participating in a charity, you're looking at one, is that people that are in business are your customer, because we're going to be the ones that are going to be donating the cash and the capital for you to be able to do what you do. And you have to be able to measure the success of what you're doing against the money that you're bringing in. And so, you know, it's something for everybody to hear that's involved. And that's what the ones that Joe and I work with on a consistent basis. First thing we tell them is, what's your metric, right? In underage sex trade, where, you know, where we do a lot of work, there's 2 million of them. And a metric for that is for us to bring it down to 1.5 million to eventually eradicate it. That's the outcome and the goal. And so ROI is a very, very important part of that. Thanks for that. How about you, Shawn? I can't wait to hear it. So Shawn, everybody that is just getting to meet Shawn, he has this mischievous look that comes over his face sometimes, which means he's about to say shit that nobody else is going to say. I see it. Sometimes I'll see it in a bar, or we'll be at a business structure, and I'm about, oh, whatever it is going to be good.
All right. Well, not to let you down. So here it comes. You ready?
Yep. Ready.
Ditto
to what Eric said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's a good one. I mean, you know, that was the other thing I didn't point out, but what he said was, people that choose to put themselves in fucked up situations, it's hard to help them because we don't know, you know, they haven't made the decision to understand that when we fail at something, that is an indicator that we need to change something about ourselves.
On a day-to-day basis, like just a little bit ago, went to lunch, right? Gave this guy an apple. But on a day-to-day basis, usually I have some extra food in my car or in my truck just now, right? Usually if I'm going somewhere, I'm going to see somebody somewhere. If they're trying to help themselves, I always look to see what else I can do to help them as well. When they're standing on a corner with a sign, I got a tough time with that one.
Yeah.
Go do something. Right now, unemployment is freaking zero. It doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger problem that we have in the business world right now is it's tough to find anybody worth a shit, because everybody who even sucks still has their job because there's nobody behind them to replace them, right? So standing on the corner right now, begging and asking for something for nothing, I have a tough time with. I went to dinner the other night, a couple nights ago, see this lady, you know, older lady digging through the trash, right? What I do a lot of times is I take all my change basically every day out of my pocket. I can't stand the change. I take all the change and I throw it in this big thing in my closet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at any given time, I got, you know, buckets of change at home, right? I take all those change into these Ziploc bags and I just throw them in the truck. So I have like a dozen Ziploc bags. I don't know how much is in each bag. Might be $10, $20. I guess it depends on how much of them are quarters versus pennies, right?
Yeah.
But I just see somebody digging through the trash looking for cans. She's got her cart. She's in the back of the grocery store. I get out of the sushi restaurant. I see her walk across the parking lot. It's raining. I just drove across the parking lot, rolled up. I was like, hey, excuse me. Roll the window down. You're like, hey, excuse me. She's like, yeah. I'm like, hey, come here. I got some cash for you. She's like, what? And I just gave her a handful of bags of money, and this lady just lit up. You know, it's like, oh my God, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much it is, not much, $40, $50 or whatever.
Yeah.
But she's already trying to do something to benefit herself and better herself. I'm more than happy to help that person out when they're doing that. You know, I told you about this the other day. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I was driving through a drive-through, and there's a guy at the end of the drive-through with the sign that says anything helps. And I'm like, dude, he's staring in my front windshield. So it's already like you're in a shitty situation. I'm ordering all this food.
Good marketing campaign.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, fuck it. Just double that order. And the guy's like, well, I'm already getting my food. I already, you know, paid for it. Just double that order. Give me another one, whatever. Here's another $10. Give me another burrito and chips I ordered, right?
Yeah.
And I pull out of the thing and I was like, hey, bud. I roll up to him. Hey, bud, you hungry? He's like, no, man, it's all good. Thanks, though. I go, what? Well, what do you got? I go, what do I got? Fuck you! Oh, fucking light up, dude. I got a fucking fistful of fucking fives for you now. Like, anything helps, dude. Get the fuck out of my driveway. I'm like, I'll lose my shit.
Yeah.
Fucking, I just need cash. But fuck, you don't need cash.
Yeah. Does that have guacamole on it? Cause
yeah, seriously.
No,
it's not gluten free. Get the fuck out of here.
It's not
It tastes like soap.
So I can't stand that shit.
Oh, that's awesome.
Exactly. Well, I love that. And I've seen you be really generous, especially with your employees, you know, people that work for you and around you. So I know that's true. You know, and I've been with you at some of the different fundraisers that I've been at, and, you call shit like you see it. You know, when people are full of shit, you say it. And And there's a lot of people that are full of shit in the philanthropic world. And so it's everybody's got to come up with their own version of what it is to give back, because I think that's literally, I think, what we're here for anyway, is to ease suffering with people. And I love that you do that with your employees, and I've seen you hand out burritos and do the things that you do. So thanks for that. All right, Jojo, how about you, buddy?
Well, you asked, I think, what my philosophy is on
Yeah.
giving back. And, from a philosophical level, most importantly, for as long as I can remember, I always felt like giving back was my responsibility. It's our responsibility. It's certainly not the government's. I mean, fuck, they can't organize a ham and mayonnaise sandwich effectively, never mind do it in under budget. And charities, sadly, are becoming, I kind of look at them so often like I look at the government in their inept ability to do the same thing.
Right.
And so I find it to be a personal responsibility. It's something that is something for me. It's a duty. It feels like to me, to do for others. Now, I don't do much on a day-to-day basis. Like I'm not. It's not so much the bums or this or that as they're known. This are the people who live in the streets. That's tough, because what's the circumstances? Is it mental health? Was it out of their control? Did they try and fail? Did they lose everything? I mean, I've had great conversations with those guys in terrible, just like everybody on this call.
Yep.
But my son he's 10, and he's got the biggest heart in the world.
Yep.
And I tell you, I couldn't have been prouder of him. He was so bothered by a mom and her daughter who had a sign and said, I can't get back to Virginia. And we live in Maryland, so, whatever, hour or two away, I can't get back and I need money. And he says to me, he's like, Dad, can we give her money? And what this did was this sparked a conversation of I said, yes, we can. And then once we did, it sparked a conversation of what we were grateful for. It sparked a conversation about how sometimes people are sham artists, and they're doing that to make money, and it's not true, and they're not trying to get back to Virginia. But what that led to was a conversation of, if that's their job, then they're probably in a worse spot than we are. And why not give them money? Because who really cares? Did we get taken? Did we get the wool pulled over our eyes? No, we're wide awake. We don't particularly care, and either way, we're still helping. So philosophically, it comes from there for me. So I feel like, and then I want everybody to pick what resonates with them. We all, many of us have a really good buddy who's passionate about hunger.
Yeah.
I don't mind working with hunger, but it's not my thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the thing that makes me get out of bed in the morning. Even though it's soul crushing when you hear the stories and you see the photos and you see the picture, it just isn't my thing. I don't mind meatloaf, but it's not my thing. Like, it doesn't get me excited. For me, what has always resonated deeply, and I'm sure it has a lot to do with my background, but anybody who's bullied or who can't take care of themselves, that's why I work with domestic violence, people who can't fight for themselves and are getting picked on, that shit gets me mad. And then diseases. I think there are certain diseases that have resonated with me, because it was, especially when I worked, Discovery Camp for Tony before that was gone. He used to do that a long time ago. They'd bring kids in there that were like Make-A-Wish kids. They weren't actually Make-A-Wish kids, but they were like on this is their last event. And and when my son he walks over to this woman and gives her money, and he beams from the contribution. It's hard to be hard in those moments. If any of it's my calluses from living through some of the bullshit that goes on in the charity world, all it takes is a 10-year-old beaming with joy to go right through all that shit. And it's like, fuck, my allergies are acting up. Son of, what's wrong, Dad? Nothing.
Yep.
Damn allergies. But I didn't think you had allergies. No, I do today.
Yep.
But you used I never heard it until most recently. You used a phrase, or kind of a parable, for lack of a better word, but when it comes to charity, it's the same thing with employees, with business employees. What we tend to do so often is we go into a dark room and we walk around bumping into people and then pulling them into the light and hoping, but they're in the damn dark room.
Right.
And we walk around, and sometimes in the dark room you get lucky, but more often than not, you bump into people that are happy being in the fucking dark.
That's right.
And what we should be doing is standing in the light room at the door and waiting for those people who are walking toward the door going, all right, I'm ready. Now we can pull them from the dark room into the light room. And that encapsulates it the best for me. It still will always be my responsibility, but it's not going to be my responsibility for those people walking around the dark room on their own. That's their business. And that's their choice. And that's it. But we'll try to help. You don't want the fucking help. Fine.
Yeah. Well, and we find that out a lot. I mean, we support over 80 charities, and, you know, and we teach, you know, we teach the infrastructure about how to better run your charity. And a lot of people come because I do donate a lot of money, and I do donate a lot of time, and I spend an inordinate amount of my actual time involved in philanthropy. And, you know, so we put together a group and said, look, we'll teach you all the necessary infrastructure. And you have been on every one of those calls. And some charities are just, you know, they're literally just there for the money, and they're really, and they show themselves, right? It's like, I'm not ready, willing, and able to do the work that's necessary. And that is something that I admire in for-profit and nonprofit and about this group of guys, that, you know, no matter how badly we've been kicked in the teeth, is we get up and we fucking do it, you know? I tell the story in my origin story about going through a bad battle with investors and money and shit like that. And I never one time in that whole entire scenario did I look to say, who's going to give me my money back? You know, who's going to give me my time back? It never even dawned on me, you know? And I know that there's this fallback position that's called, you know, that's I can't even remember the name of it right now, but there's this fallback position for everybody in social settings where welfare, right? And I think that welfare is there. It's there for a good reason. I'm not disparaging it at all in my entire life, but I got to tell you, I went through a homeless scenario where I was homeless for a period of time, and not one time did it enter my head to go down and file for unemployment or for welfare or for any of that. I got through it, and I thought to myself, well, that was fucking stupid. You know, I mean, I paid into this system for so many years, but there's two mindsets in this world. It's somebody's going to rescue me, or I have to participate in my own rescue. And I think that whether you're in a charity or a for-profit, or where you're in a family, you're a husband, a mother, a wife, a dad, or whatever it is, you know, that self-sufficiency is what made this country great. And every time we try to go down this path, you know, of turning that around, that's where we start to have problems. And I want to get into that and here in just a second, because and the thing that I want to just acknowledge about these three guys that are here. I've known all of them in some of the worst case scenarios in their lives and my life. I've known them in the best times, and their hearts of giving are fucking phenomenal. So, you know, in this philanthropic side of things, it's easy to make fun of shit and to get angry at people that are out there that are fucking around. And this is one of the other areas. There we go. Well, we should have warned him, you know, So, you know, but the idea is none of us that are on this screen like bullies, you know, none of us like bullies. Mm-hmm. And I see anybody that's out there in the philanthropic world that's taking advantage of other people and lying and say they're doing one thing and using money for another. They're worse than bullies. They're crooks. They're criminals. They're the worst of the worst. And so we do a lot to protect our charities against those kind of scams that exist out there. So it's both good side and the bad side of all scenarios. And I just wanted to say that about you guys before we move into the next subject.